Albert Breer's got a story out there right now. And it's just, some people would say, well, it's nothing new, right? But basically what he's saying is all signs are pointing to Brock Purdy being ready for September 10th at Heinz Field, week 1, Niners Steelers. And that, there's nothing for sure, but that he could start throwing in mid-August and that he's clearly number one. And then Albert Breer goes on a whole thing about how Sam Darnold is sounding like he's kind of making it seem like Sam Darnold's going to be the number 2. And the whole idea and Breer's message was that last year the 49ers gave last year to Trey. And obviously, we saw how the year went with the injury, which was a lost year for him. But this year, they are hell-bent to win the Super Bowl, and they want to put their best quarterback on the field, the guy they think can help them win, and that's Purdy. And it sounds like if Purdy's not ready to go, that's not Trey, that's Darnold. And from what Breer's saying, and he's basically saying Trey's played 1 year of football since high school. He's going to make mistakes. Last year they were willing to roll him out there and live with his mistakes. This year they are not going to be willing to do that. What's Trey's future with the Niners? What do you think of this story?
Man, that's a great question. From what I can gather is that early in the season they struggled, and it's not exactly a similar situation, but when Jimmy Garoppolo had to come in, we saw that Denver game and he was rusty. So for me, there's a lot of importance to this story because I just can't believe that Brock Purdy, who had the surgery on March 10th, and then literally 6 months later to the day, the NFL season's going to start. He's 23 years old. He's the franchise quarterback. They're not going to take a chance in rolling him out there. And if people didn't see this, and look, I don't make any money off this. Jennifer Lee Chan wrote a piece. She was down at Tight End U at Kittle's camp in Nashville, and she talked to our good friend BDN, Nick Mullins, and he said similar surgery, similar thing happened, and he said at 6 months, he was ready to throw, but he wasn't ready to be in a football game. So let's think about that. I mean, you really think the 49ers or anybody, they just don't do this nowadays. I don't care if it's the Warriors. I don't care if it's any team. They just don't rush players back. And so he could be on track, and he's in Jacksonville throwing with a quarterback a guy right now. He's with an ortho guy down there. He's on track. It's not that he's not behind. He's not ahead. He's right on track. But I have a hard time believing that the 49ers are going to throw Brock Purdy out there on the exact 6-month anniversary. I just don't see it coming. So the first couple of games, it is critical. And the reason why it's critical is the 49ers, if they had gotten off to a better start last year, and this is them talking, they wouldn't have been in Philadelphia. They'd have been in San Francisco for the NFC Championship game, and probably everything changes. So that is their goal this year, first and foremost, not the overall goal. The goal is the Super Bowl. And I would say that they're desperate to win a Super Bowl. That's the sense that I get when I go down there. But they want to get off to a great start. So if Brock Purdy's not there for the first couple of weeks, which is what I expect, then who is going to be that guy? You and I think, are in agreement on this. Greg loves Sam Darnold. I know the organization loves Sam Darnold. I'm a bottom line results guy. I haven't seen it from him. So that's fine that he was a third overall pick, and it's fine that everybody talks about how he's the best thrower, this, that, and the other. And you know this is better than I do. There's a lot of intricacies to the position. It's not about athleticism. It's not about arm strength. It's about accuracy, which he hasn't had. It's about getting it to the right place, which he doesn't do. It's about having composure, which he hasn't shown. Making the right decisions. He's thrown the most interceptions of starters since he's come into the league. So look, everybody can look at Sam Darnold and see this great looking prospect, but and say that he didn't have a chance with the Jets and he didn't have a chance with the Panthers, but I just haven't seen it. So I can't put that into the bank. Trey Lance, they're just, from what I understand, they're just not willing to do it again. And I'm not anti Trey Lance. I'm just saying, and it's not fair, and life ain't fair, and sports ain't fair. But he got an opportunity in Chicago in the middle of a rainstorm, to say the least, and he got hurt against Seattle, and that was his chance. And unfortunately, Brock Purdy ran with the situation, and I don't think they're going to give him another opportunity early in the season because they think it is so critical that they get off to a great start and they have home field advantage so they can win a Super Bowl. So that leaves Trey Lance, and let's throw Brandon Allen in here. I think that if everything rolls the way it looks right now, that it's going to be Brock Purdy as the starter when he's ready, Sam Darnold and Brandon Allen. And I don't know where that leaves Trey Lance, because what kind of value, I'll ask you, what kind of value does Trey Lance have around the league? Not very much.
It really makes this preseason quite interesting, doesn't it? As far as I bet you anything, if we check the seating chart at the game, there's going to be a number of teams who are going to be having, scouts sitting there next to us in the press box, and that in those preseason games looking at Trey Lance, because sounds like he was going to be available at the cutdown.
Yeah, and here's the thing too: if you're a team that maybe doesn't have a young quarterback or like Trey Lance coming out of the draft, but knew that he was going to have to sit a little while. Now he's going into his third year. Well, you can go into the fourth year, then there's a fifth-year option. So really what he's got, if you're a team that's looking at him, you want to get him in your camp now because you got a third year, then you got a fourth year, and then you'd have to make a decision on a fifth-year option for Trey Lance. And, there are teams, I'm sure, that liked Trey Lance, but everybody knew that he was inexperienced. Everybody knew that he was probably going to have to sit for a couple of years. But if you're one of those teams and you can get Trey Lance on the cheap, and again, he's not making a ton of money in your quarterback room. So if you were one of those teams that liked him and you've got an unsettled quarterback position, rather than going out and spending a top pick on a quarterback, why not take a look at Trey Lance? The only thing that would be a negative to that is, you pick up a veteran or something like that at the deadline, or you or late in training camp, you maybe have an injury at the position. It's been shown that those guys can pick up the offense pretty quickly. Sam Bradford a couple of years ago, of course, Carson Palmer, was picked up by the Raiders and the Bengals. I mean, it happens that guys are hurt. But those are veteran players who can pick up offenses, who have shown they can pick up offenses, who know the NFL. Here's Trey Lance, and the big wild card with him is, let's say he did fall to fourth, and then they traded him. First of all, they wouldn't get very much in return. They would get some salary hit back, a little bit of money there. But I mean, who would take Trey Lance? They'd almost have to sit him another year so that he could learn the offense. Because if he missed camp with the team, then he's got to learn during the season on the fly. And you know this as well as I do. Backups don't get any reps. So then what's he going to do? Be on a side field and try to learn the entire offense? So this is another redshirt year for Trey Lance, and then he could compete for the job in his fourth year, in the last year of his contract, and then a team has to decide whether they're going to pick up a fifth year. Life ain't fair, man, but Trey Lance has been dealt a pretty tough hand.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. This is a tough call for the 49ers. They could look really, really bad on the end of this if they let him walk and he becomes great somewhere else and they couldn't develop him. I mean, that's going to be a rough thing to deal with as well. I mean,
the patience, right? I mean, you and I mean, it's like, I just think that they're in this mode, and I've said this before. I don't know what the hell Kyle Shanahan was thinking. I don't know if he was drunk when he made the draft pick or what, but if we look back at the history of the quarterbacks that he likes, now RG3 was kind of thrust upon him, and his dad Mike was coaching the then Redskins at the time and said, look, develop an offense for this guy. But he liked Kirk Cousins better, who they took in the very same draft. He wants a guy who will execute. Look, I'm the genius here. I'm the puppeteer. If you run my plays, they will work. So I don't want anybody running around. I don't want backyard football. I don't want you improvising. I don't want you holding the ball. Get the ball out. Get it to the right people. How many times have we seen Kyle Shanahan be asked about what he values in a quarterback? And he says, get it out, get it on time, be accurate, make it to the right place. You know what I mean? He says that every single time. And again, this is not a rip on Trey Lance. He hasn't played enough. That's not him. He is not accurate. He doesn't see it quickly. There's all these great. He's got all these physical attributes. I'm just telling you, not anti-Trey Lance. I'm just telling you what he looks for in a quarterback. And think about it. Matt Schaub, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, like these type of quarterbacks, they're not the greatest. Matt Ryan's going to go to the Hall of Fame, but these aren't the greatest. But they get it out. They get it on time. They get it to the right place so that Kyle Shanahan's offense works at a really high level. And even Sam Darnold, I'm not a Darnold guy, but if you look at it, and I think Pro Football Focus did this today or yesterday, or whatever, they have the best I think Bill Barnwell actually did this on ESPN. They have the best skill position players in the league. So just get it to the right guys at the right time. Kyle's got the offense designed the right way. Don't improvise on me. Don't be inaccurate. Don't hold the ball too long. I mean, I think that's the other thing about Darnold. I think that over the last X amount of years, I think the guys who hold it the longest, Trey Lance holds it 3.15 and Sam Darnold holds it 3.22. I mean, this is where I don't get Darnold. He's not accurate. He doesn't get rid of it. He doesn't see it. But everybody within the Niners organization loves Sam Darnold. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either, but it is really interesting. I would say that if you ask me who do I think is going to win the competition, I think Lance would outplay Darnold in the preseason. But if they feel like Darnold is going to be number two, and then you got Brandon Allen. What's going to happen with Trey? Are they going to keep? Are they? Brandon Allen was Joe Burrow's backup last year. He was a legitimate number two. I got to think he had other options. Instead, he comes here. So that one's kind of curious. So it's like, and then Darnold came here at the beginning of free agency.
That's on the
So,
first day. I mean,
well, I'd love to know what was said to
that's why
their agents.
like, what was the thing? Because you sign on the first day, and it's not like you got a ton of money. What did he get? I think a base of like 3.5 or something. But I mean, if you sign with a team on the first day, they're saying to you something you want to hear, and you're saying to them, absolutely. And I think this is a chance for him to resurrect his career. And he probably looked at the situation and said, well, Brock Purdy's hurt. Trey Lance is not established. I could go in here with these type of weapons and resurrect my career. I could see why Darnold did it. I want to know why the 49ers did it, because they basically told you without telling you, we don't trust Trey Lance. They signed a quarterback on the first day of free agency. What does that say about Trey Lance? Again, I'm not hating. It's just read the tea leaves of what the 49ers can say all they want, and John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan can say all they want. And all, Trey's progressing and we love Trey. And that's for leverage, because if they ever move him, why would you rip your own player? Why would you ever say that, hey, Trey's not coming around and Trey's not seeing it and we don't know what we're going to do with Trey? They would never say that. They're going to try to maintain leverage.
No, of course. I mean, Mike Dunleavy said that Jordan Poole was going to be here for 4 more years. He wasn't even here for 4 more days. I mean, God, you say what you need to say. Talk's cheap. I never listen to. It's never about what they say. It's about what they do and the indications. But here's the one thing. It's like Trey Lance is got 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He's got a 77 quarterback rating. He's completed 54.9%. He's 2-2 in his career in 4 starts. There's so many guys who have started so bad. I guess the question would be this. Clearly, Trey has the traits that you love because they fell in love with the kid on some level, right? When they drafted him. There were a bunch of things they liked about him. You had to know that it was a little bit of a boomer bust pick because of his story and his situation. He hadn't played very much football. But then I think it was safe to assume that you knew it was a long range kind of a play. The question I would have is, have you quit on it altogether? Or do you just see, it's hard for me to believe that you love the guy, but he's not ready to play if you quit on him altogether. If you pay the money, that's a lot of money because he was the 3rd pick in the draft, and keep him as number 3 on your depth chart, you're and it's an investment you can make because your starter is so cheap and so relatively inexpensive. But will they keep Trey and have him be number 3 and have him make the most money, or and develop him over the next 3 to 4 years and keep him around? Or do you think that they would move off of him at the trade deadline, or at the cut down, and go with Brandon Allen as number 3 and Darnold as number 2 and try to move Trey for whatever they can get?
Well, first and foremost, and I know fans hold on to this, the fact that they gave up the picks that they gave up and everything like that's done, right? That's business. You don't compound the problem if you don't like the guy by have him hang around just because of what you gave up. So those picks are all gone. They don't owe anything else. And so now you're free and clear. But my answer to that would be, and I'd ask you back this, what's his value? So right now, these guys are stocks, right? High, low, whatever. They just traded Jordan Poole at a low. They're talking about the Warriors. They just traded James Wiseman at a low. You don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to. But, I don't know how good Brandon Allen is. But again, in talking to people down there, they like Brandon Allen. They like Sam Darnold. They love Brock Purdy. They say publicly they love Trey Lance. But I don't think they do. But okay, let's just say it comes down to cut down day. I mean, are they really going to keep Brandon Allen over Trey Lance? Because who are you going to trade him to? And then if you are a team out there, as we were just talking about, you're picking up Trey Lance for the potential of it, and he probably wouldn't even play this year. So now you're looking at 3 redshirt years. He's in such an awkward position because he needs to play, but maybe he's not good enough to play. And you mentioned the starts that he's had. Let's go through that. Remember Arizona? You and I were doing pre and post game that day. Ran all over the place. He gets hurt against Seattle. That was the way that, because Kyle didn't trust him to throw, running was the way that Kyle thought he could win that football game. He played against Houston. Everybody hangs on that over route that he threw to Deebo Samuel. And it was like, oh, did you see that throw? Or to Trent Sherfield in that preseason game. Oh, did you see that throw? Like, we see the glimpses of it, but glimpses are not what makes a player, a professional player. All these guys are so talented, no matter the sport, they can show you glimpses of anything. Even the guy who never scores, more than 8 or 10 a game. Hell, Tolbert, Tolbert had like a 30-point game in his career. I love Tolbert. But the fact of the matter is it's about the consistency, play to play, right? Play to play in the NFL, game to game in the NFL. That's the way that it works. No, there was a reason why the guy was taken third overall. He can show a ton of flashes, but on a consistent basis, that's why they love Brock Purdy is they feel like play to play, game to game, he gives them the best opportunity to win. And it comes down to the fact that, and I think this word is accurate, they are desperate to win a Super Bowl down there.
Yeah.
So does Trey Lance just doesn't match up with the timeline, and they were willing to give him a chance last year. And look, the Bears game, that wasn't fair. And the Seattle game, he gets hurt. He's not getting a fair chance, but we're not children here. Bobby got more, jelly beans than I got. It's the NFL. It's professional sports. Life ain't fair. I don't think he's ever going to get a chance here. But to go back to what you said, I'll ask you this. Why would they trade him? Because the stock is at an all-time low. I mean, what would you get back for Trey Lance? A 7 and a conditional if he plays. You wouldn't get anything back for him, would you?
I just all I'm saying is to avoid the criticism because, come on, I mean, there's going to be significant noise made from the fan base, and maybe I'm too in the Twitter world and the YouTube world to maybe I'm my view of the world's distorted because maybe the real fans all like Brock Purdy, but to me it seems almost like 50-50, between Purdy and Lance. And I mean, Purdy seems like Lance seems like he's a beloved figure. And if it's one thing to say Brock Purdy's in front of him. I think, the Lance fans would be like, okay, reluctantly, he played well, he should start there. But if you get a healthy Trey Lance who plays reasonably well in the preseason and you start Sam Darnold at Heinz Field and tell everybody that Trey's too raw, all I got to say is you better win games at that point or people are going to absolutely come through the woodwork and be like, we want to see Trey Lance,
no doubt,
because they've been told that Trey's the face of the team and they, to some degree, they bought into it as the original plan and they don't want to deviate from the original plan until they see more than 4 career starts. And that's the thing. It's like, I did a deep dive, John, on all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks that have ever played in the NFL and how they started. And like, basically they all sucked for like at least the first couple of years. Everybody, I mean, there's a few exceptions, but I think we're so cued in on or so tuned into what Mahomes did that anything south of 50 touchdowns and 5 picks in your first year is going to be like some nightmare, but also that it's like that it can be done. Like it's really easy. The quarterbacks that start fast in the NFL, it's very, very rare. That's why the Purdy thing is so impressive on his front. And also why I think you can't give up on Trey Lance so easily, but there's a contract price in a cap sport. So his number gets pretty fat. Yeah. The question I would have is how long are they willing? We know they love him, but at least they say they love him. We know they love him as a person. I don't know if they love his quarterback play, but they love him as a guy. How long are they going to keep him as if their evaluation is if he plays, he'd make mistakes. If he made mistakes, they would lose. And Purdy's the starter and Darnold's the 2. Are you gonna, basically keep him as a third string quarterback and have him be inactive on game days unless the first 2 guys get hurt? And don't you think there's going to be a huge public outcry? I think they do. I think there would be, and I think they understand that. So that's what made me think that they would move on from him, just because they don't want this daily competition of Darnold. If they really want to clear the deck for Darnold, well, I don't know. I'm not sure what they want. I mean, if it's me, I'm taking a full look at Trey Lance at the beginning of the year, but I'm giving him at least 2-3 games unless he really gets outplayed in the preseason by Darnold.
There's no doubt. And here's the thing too. This is part of the fallacy of this. And then I want to ask you about Brock Purdy. People continue to say that we don't know. We don't know because we're not at every practice and they're closed off to the meeting. We see some of camp. And so we just see the throwing. It's kind of like the throwing motion, right? And then they close the doors and we don't see what Trey Lance is doing in these kind of things. They know. Yeah. I mean, they're experts. They know, they're watching. And from what we hear, Trey still has big time accuracy issues. Trey still has a hard time seeing it. He's not progressing to the level that they feel comfortable. So I understand the fandom, and I also understand, like you're pointing out here, and I'm the same way. Look, they gave up a bunch to get Trey Lance. He was the 3rd overall pick. We got excited about Trey Lance. We saw him make some plays. We saw him make a run. We're watching all these quarterbacks as fans all over the league, make all these plays with their legs. I want one of those. I mean, that's kind of how I think. I could be wrong, but the fan base looks at this thing as, man, I want one of these modern day quarterbacks who can run, who can throw. Could how many times have we talked about this? God, could you imagine Kyle Shanahan's offense with a guy who can run and throw and all these weapons, and you add Trey Lance, what would the running game look like? So we've kind of been robbed of that opportunity to see what we thought we were going to see, right? Which is, we were promised this one thing, and so we want to see that. And as much as Brock Purdy played well, he's your typical, right, drop back quarterback. Sam Darnold, nobody's excited about that because we've seen him play. Brandon Allen, who the hell's that guy? Backed up Burrow in Cincinnati. So we've kind of been robbed of this 3rd overall pick guy that we all got excited about. And like I said, I just don't think they're going to have enough patience. They committed to it last year. I don't think they'll commit to it this year. They are in this Super Bowl window. They thought they should have won the Super Bowl last year, as strange as that sounds, if the game was at home versus Philly, and they cannot risk, or they do not feel like they can risk getting off to a slow start like they did last year. So I think those guys have an advantage based on the experience. So that's the Trey side of things.